For those of you who didn't know or don't think that Elder's album Lore from 2015 was exceptionally important to the band's career, let me remind you right now. Why it was important is based around what it did. It transitioned this band from where they were with their initial albums to where they are now with Reflections of the Floating World. It did so by combining the titanic riffage of their very stoned out or very sort of fuzzed out brand of metal to a little bit more of a progressive direction that allowed them to really expand their compositions and almost guaranteed that their songs were going to get longer. It almost made it ultra important and totally necessary. And here on Reflections of a Forgotten World, we see that once again. This is a 6-track affair from the doom / psychedelic / whatever you want to call them group from right here in the good old US of A. And 4 of these 6 tracks eclipse the 10-minute mark. And the thing about that being important is the fact of what you're getting with it. Sometimes you get the idea that these longer tracks have a lot of filler in there, a lot of things that maybe don't belong or that just sort of lengthen the composition for absolutely no reason. But that's the thing. All of these expansions, all of these songs that eclipse that 10-minute mark do so because everything feels like it belongs. Reflections of a Forgotten World may actually be Elder, showcasing why Lore is such an important and quintessential album in their catalog. While Lore might not be their best, and I'll tell you why in a minute, it's certainly one that's going to be painted as one of the most important albums that this band, or perhaps in the genre, of the past few years. So we start off with Sanctuary, the very first cut off of Reflections of a Floating World, and immediately you are met with reasons why these songs are as long as they are. These are almost like songs that are divided into 5 or 6 different parts, and doing so allows for the pace or the tone of the song to change quickly on a dime. And you can see this really within the first 3 minutes of this album. Before you even hit the 3-minute mark of Sanctuary, you get a tonal change and you are immediately blindsided by a brilliant 1 minute of this genre that just shows that you can go from uber aggressive to something that has sort of just that fuzzed or stoned out feel to it, that very relaxed, almost Caius-like amplification to it that just grants such a great feeling. It's one of those eargasms that happen almost immediately and make you think, wait a minute, this band immediately has already done something that feels relatively special, and then you're starting to pray to the metal gods that this continues. And it does continue throughout the length of Sanctuary. The only real flaw being that at the end of this, there does seem to feel like a little bit of extension. There's a little bit of emptiness that then is able to go into a rip-roaring finale. But you can also make the argument very successfully that this is a way in order to make that finale feel all the more grandiose, and the, sort of reminiscing of some of the past themes that you got from the song are made all the more special considering they're sort of built into this outro with that sort of little lull of, aggression or, power activity. Going right into the next couple of tracks, such as The Falling Veil, either that or Starving Off the Truth, we have tracks that are able to mirror the sentiment, however, do so in different lights. One of Elder's best qualities is their way the way in which they're able to blend their titanic riffs alongside of these slower, more harmonious moments. It sort of gives you a break from the action a little bit, but what also makes this very special is that these are not riffs that feel like they're calming you down or just trying to set up the next piece. These are all powerful elements of each song as well. So they don't feel out of place for one, and they don't feel like they're merely there to break up 2 ideas, even though that's what they end up doing. They break up a pair of ideas and do so in a way that also feels very complimentary. It guides the song to the next place as opposed to simply being there and existing. And that's powerful work as well. You have to just listen to how some of these transitions hit, whether it is into one of these softer moments like it was in Sanctuary, or whether it's a transition from soft to hard, or hard to another piece. The transitions on this album are what make it really special, considering every single riff feels very important. And consider some of the influences that Elder has cited for their work. Black Sabbath, Sleep, Electric Wizard. And really right there, considering Sleep is on there, you might as well toss on some High on Fire as well because of the Matt Pike connection. Man, is he important for music, first of all. But second of all, it's also important to see exactly how all of these factors play in. And they do. You get some of those softer moments a la Black Sabbath. You get some of those doomed basic riffs similar to the gods of metal, but then you also get that sort of fuzzed out stoner metal that you would expect from a band such as Sleep, and then you get some real, I guess, progression or combination that you would get from a band such as Electric Wizard. Everything feels very much like they have used their influences to only help them carve out their own niche within the genre, because what they do may not necessarily be all of that unique, but on an album such as this, it feels unique. Especially whenever you consider that Blind, which is a near 14-minute long song, may keep your attention more than any other track on the album. And that is even including Sontag, which is right after that, which is an 8.5-minute long instrumental. It's one that has that softer moment. It's one that doesn't have to go over the top in order to really get your attention and keep you motivated. Instead, that decision to go that way is what keeps you motivated. It's what keeps you enthralled. Everything feels like it has its own identity, and that's the beautiful part that this album is able to deliver. Really, whenever you get in 1,000 Hands, you're really unsure if they could potentially have each of these 6 tracks be monsters and also be 100% fantastic. And the answer is that you're wrong. Yes, they can. Because 1,000 Hands, while it doesn't reach that 10-minute mark, while it doesn't end with a crescendo of near 15-minute thunder, it's only 9.5 minutes, it still is able to deliver that same punch, which is also important because it shows that each piece of their material, whether how long or, what the subject matter is going to feel like it hits you in the right way. It all has a very consistent feel to it. They're on that musical plateau that I used to talk about all the time, where every song that they're cranking out very meticulously and very carefully, all of the decisions that are being made are the right ones. They are on a high point, and it shows with Reflections of a Floating World. This is rare territory, folks. I'm just going to say it. This is rare territory. Typically, whenever we speak about albums with such high grandeur, it's definitely got a bit of a tone to it. We've had a thrash album. We've had a prog album. We've had, a classic album. But something like this, it's something that always feels like it's a little bit typical. It's something that feels like it always has the identity of a lot of other bands like it. But Elder somehow shredded that mold. Somehow Elder has made themselves feel bigger than almost everybody else. They feel like they belong in the elite, like they should be mentioned within the same breath as modern acts such as High on Fire, as some of the most important members of the stoner metal discography. This is a perfect score. 30 out of 30. I tried. I want to let you guys know this. I tried for 5, 6, 7 listens to try to find something that was flawed about this record. The only thing I could think about was that thing I mentioned at the end of Sanctuary. And you know what? I could not dock points for that because I felt like it also had a purpose. Everything here fits. This is a puzzle that is beautifully put together. This is an album that is beautifully showcased. This is something you need to hear. If you're not into this style of music, it could be just like Dope Smoker by Sleep. It could just be like any High on Fire album. It could just be like listening to a Caius album for the first time. This is an album that's going to bring people into this genre if they only get the opportunity to listen to it. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and we just got our first serious Album of the Year #1 candidate. We had a couple before this, but there was always that sneaking suspicion that somebody might be able to come along and do better. Now, it's really, really hard to judge. This might be an album that in December we are offering the highest of praise to. Stay tuned.